Right, good morning, Raphael Neva, and welcome to Earthdance's YouTube channel. Good morning,
Woo!
Christos. So great to connect with you both. Thanks for making time for this. I know you guys are in super creative mode right now. About to go on tour. And part of that tour includes us at Earthdance. So you guys are Loom Ensemble, and you're going to be offering a training and creation performance intensive for a week at Earthdance around this piece that y'all are creating called Tell Me How to Breathe. So I'm wondering if you guys wanted to start off with just describing what you're going to be offering and what people can expect.
Yeah, so this piece is a 75 to 90-minute long dance theater piece. And it's an arc that has a whole narrative and characters, and it's sort of like an experimental new musical. So there's a lot of like musical pieces, and there's a dance ensemble. And we're touring to New York and Vermont and Massachusetts. And in each of the states, there's a different dance ensemble. And so what we're doing at Earthdance is a week-long residency where we'll have a few hours each day of training. So training in some of the techniques that we use to make dance theater, and then teaching and co-creating the 6 pieces that the dance ensemble does within the show. And then the participants of the week-long workshop will perform in the shows on Friday and Saturday night and have the opportunity to go with us to Boston on Sunday and perform in Boston. So hopefully it'll be, a deep dive, sort of immersive experience, both in training and honing skills, and then actually being inside the creation process, and then the sort of training to perform and get to be on stage in front of the audience, but held within the container of the show. So there's some sense of ease to be within a set container already.
We are a touring ensemble of 10, 11 professional theater makers who are doing these 12 cities, hitting city parks and outdoor performance venues. We've been working on this show through this series of devising intensives over just about a year now. We've been in full-time immersive rehearsal residency for 5 weeks now, developing this performance. And so that 1 week at Earthdance is an opportunity for folks to jump on board and actually become a part of the public performances at Earthdance and in Boston.
Cool. And I know when I was talking to Raf last week about this, I love the idea that people know that there's a performance at the end of it, and even like it's a 2.5 hour trip to and from Boston, and so to me that feels really different from just a workshop where you just explore something, it ends and you go home. Whereas like from going in that this is culminating in something that's going to be public and seen, which I imagine raises the stakes, but also makes it like so much more juicy because it's like this is going to be actually shared and go out into the world at the end of this. So I think that's pretty unique and actually what we do at Earthdance and kind of connecting these places as well. To me, I wanted to invite you guys to talk a little bit about the history of this ensemble, this company, this project. What need is it addressing in the world? Like what is it that this is creating in the world that is unique, that is important?
Thank you. Beautiful.
Yeah, there's many questions in this question. So maybe I'll do just a brief history of Loom Ensemble. So we founded Loom Ensemble in 2010 out of a series of workshops with the Team and Pig Iron and City Company, which are all extremely awesome physical theater companies. And so since then we've been making these evening length pieces that are really live in the realm of dance theater. So there's character in story, but there's also dance and sort of moments of abstraction. And we did this in New York City for a few years, and we've done this in Italy and Europe for a few years, and we did it in Dubai for 7 years, and then back in Vermont, and now we're here. So we've been doing this all over the world, and a lot of times working this way, where we have a group of core actors and then we do kind of an open training with people who join the broader ensemble, the movement ensemble. And so there's kind of a part of the answer in there is about the form, and we like this form where there's these people who are like, you know, I'm a professional and I'm doing this with my life, which is a certain commitment that some people make and other people don't want to make, even if they like performance. And so there's a core group of people who are sort of putting a lot into the project. And then there's an openness to further participation for people who are excited about performance, maybe have some training, aren't wanting to do it professionally, or aren't in a place where they have the time for that, and then they can be involved also. And I think then the depth of the work increases. You know, it's like it has more life, more breath to it. So I'm excited. This will be the first time we're doing it within 1 week, so that will be, I think, quite cool, quite exciting. So this piece is rooted. So the pandemic happened in 2020. We were all there. It was very challenging for almost everyone. And in 2021, we were, I think, like everyone, just trying to figure out like how to deal with our own lives, how to deal with sort of an exploding society that's dealing with all of the challenge of COVID and the loss and death of COVID, with wildfires raging all over the world, and I think close to home for a lot of people in California. And then with the sort of like explosion of Black Lives Matter with the death of George Floyd, and like racism really coming, I feel like, into the public conversation a lot more. So as we were feeling this pressure in our internal lives, and knowing that our art form, our passion, is performance for culture shift, we sort of had the seed of an idea of like, okay, let's make a show that looks at the intersectionality of these crises. Mm-hmm. And then it came to us as also embodiment practitioners that actually these are all targeting the lungs, with the social justice cry, I can't breathe, and with COVID hitting the lungs, and with wildfires and smoke in the air. And so then as we came into the lungs, a lot of different traditions hold the lungs as the organ of grief. And that got us to like, well, what is happening in a society that I would say largely doesn't honor and uphold grief and grief practice, especially within public spaces, within community? So it was like, we got into this network of things that really felt important and close to our hearts. And so we made a show with these topics in 2021, and we did it outside in public parks because it wasn't safe to do things inside still at that point. And public parks felt like, okay, let's really get this into the public. Let's put it in the sphere of the public rather than in a private space. And the result was sort of like, feel like overwhelming need for this work. Like, I feel like audiences were like crying and coming to us like, this is so important. This work is so important. And so after that run of shows, we did a lot of the back end work, like apply for a lot of grants and funding and do a lot of admin. And we're making, so this is our second show with similar topics. And the piece we made in 2021 was really specific to the moment. You know, the characters were actually set in lockdown in COVID. So it didn't feel appropriate to really reprise that show, but the themes feel really relevant. So this is a totally new piece that we're doing, Tell Me How You Breathe. And it's actually set slightly in the future, where climate change has advanced some. And the staging of the show is at a tipping point where the human to tree ratio is such that there's no longer quite enough oxygen for humans to breathe. So it really puts us in a, you know, an advanced place in the climate crisis. But then we're looking at in the show the way the climate crisis intersects with public health systems, with individuals, with like social movements, and with racism and with poverty. And so it's sort of a piece, again, exploring the intersectionality of a lot of things, but also with some humor and tenderness and things that help us be able to look at these hard things that we need to look at, but it's like they're so hard sometimes we can't just look at them. We need to like be held in a container to process and to just feel and ideate and dream into how we can live our lives to hopefully support our futures and future generations.
We had spent the 3 years before the pandemic devising and touring dance theater performances about the role of white people in dismantling white supremacy, already in dialogue with the earlier years of the Black Lives Matter organizing that began with the killing of Trayvon Martin. And the other big Loom Ensemble productions in those years before the pandemic were directly eco-activism or about destigmatizing breakdown and mental health crises. So we were coming into that moment already grounded in years of anti-racism work and having built ourselves a previous decade's worth of experience, falling on our faces, learning by failing, in this realm of using the particular heart nourishment of gathering together for live dance theater performances, especially integrating moments of audience participation where we can invite communities to join us in song, to join us in simple symbolic acts of ceremony and ritual, to laugh and appreciate beauty together as a way to create a supportive container within which to lean into these difficult conversations and pressing questions of our time. And that feels to me like one of the unique offerings of culture work. So
Here. From what you all described around this piece, I understand it as a kind of speculative fiction. You're imagining this point in the future, which, you know, we might as well be headed towards. We don't know what's going to unfold. And then I imagine there's, I mean, for all this kind of stuff, I experience it as a kind of spell casting, like invoking, right? And so you're imagining perhaps an alternate future or how we might respond to things unfolding in certain ways. That is the future. I'm wondering if you can each take a couple minutes. I would invite you. Is there a particular moment, a story that you can share about a group, a person, some situation that you've experienced in your past that is informing what you want the future to look like, if that makes sense? Like, what have you yourself taken in that someone else has created that tells you that it's meaningful to invoke alternate futures?
I have something immediate coming up, and I'm not sure it fully meets your invitation, but in this story, I play someone whose primary motivation has to do with his child. I use they them pronouns. I am a baba as a parent, but it's actually been really clarifying to step into the mentality of fatherhood and dadhood that I kind of pushed away from my own life in the story of this fictional character. And right now we can do this interview because the actors of the piece made lunch, and the playwright is watching our toddler, and the composer and the dramaturg are building the costume, the set pieces in the barn right now. So imagining speculative climate crisis futures is very linked to what will become, what will our baby see in their lifetime. And in order to do the kind of ensemble collaboration that yields these collectively devised performances that we're dedicated to, we're building community wherever we go. Sometimes that's been catastrophically toxic. And sometimes it's magic. And to be held within the thriving communities that grow out of these creation residencies. My felt sense in my body, I feel like that is the antidote to the most dystopic climate futures that we imagine. So just to ground it one more time, that piece about racism actually started as a series of workshops in Dubai that had a core ensemble with like a dozen different passports of people whose home countries were all over the world. From a starting point of people working with the songs and dances of their ancestors. And bridging from there into the personal conflicts that each person in the ensemble lived between what they felt like their ancestors would have expected of them and the capitalist world that they were trying to navigate. And in that process, this is before being a parent, but already in that process, I felt the personal transformation that I could receive from these collaborations. The place where this like outward focus on creating a performance goes as much in as it goes out into rewiring my own body mind, and therefore it feels like preparing myself to be a contributing member in a more beautiful future in the hopes of averting dystopia for the next generation.
Awesome. Thanks, Raph.
Yeah, I guess what comes up for me is in 2012, we were invited to do a 3-month residency in Italy with an organization called the Art Monastery Project that we then ended up joining for like a decade. But in that first summer, we went to Italy, and there were this group of artists, some from the US, some from all over the world, living in truly rural Italy, like all packed into one small house, and we like built this little makeshift stage outside the house. It was just this like it seemed it was less organized than I expected, and And the dedication was so high. The
Mm.
dedication was like, we are doing this. And so there's this group of artists. We're going to make a show. We're going to tour it to little towns in Italy with these Italian partners. And there was a focus on contemplative practice, on meditation, and exploring chant practice. And so then we also built this small temple in the ground. Anyway, for me, I had been living in New York City until that point and came to this residency. And it was really the first time that I understood, like, oh, society and culture is made up. It's different all over the place. I mean, it's not like just made up, it's deeply, deeply rooted, but it's also just made up. And someone makes it up. And it doesn't mean that it's right. It's like culture is not always helpful. Like, you shouldn't buy into the system. It's not like someone who knows more than you has like developed a great system and now you're living your life in that system. Like, that's not how it works. And I think I really didn't know that. And that summer, my mind just really opened to like, oh, I want to live in and be in and create for myself and try to be a part of for other people, like creating a world where people can thrive. And like, to some extent, you can kind of carve out a space for yourself and the people around you, like from the overculture. You can sort of be like, all right. And Earthdance is one of these havens for sure. I think people go there and it's like, wow, this is actually like a little society where people thrive, where their bodies feel good, they eat good food, they have connection, their emotions are welcome. And so the art monastery was also one of these havens. And the director of the show that summer, Liz Maxwell, was really like, let's go. Like, we don't have to have a ton of resources to do this. We can just create a schedule that helps us thrive. We can create communication practices. And so her work and the work that they were doing just totally shifted my life. And I think that that was really a seed for me in terms of like wanting our art to be grounded in a communal living situation and wanting to make shows that also do this work. So yeah, I took really direct inspiration from Liz Maxwell that summer and from Betsy McCall, who now is Suiko McCall. They've been really powerful people. Yeah.
We're gonna have to wrap up soon, but there's so many things that I want to comment on. I think I want to end on culture. That's actually what's coming to me. And maybe this also loops in Earthdance, a place that, we all know and love. When is culture at its best for the both of you? When is culture fulfilling like the highest purpose? Because we know that, culture is neutral. Like you can create a culture of absolute atrocities as much as you can create a culture of beauty and life nourishment. Let me just say, because I feel like for me, having done and taught performance, the medium is culture and performance. You know what I mean? Like you're actually fucking with culture itself is the medium. There's nothing physical. It's not pottery. It's not painting. Like it's actually the culture that you're hacking and actually playing with. And from what I understand, you guys are not only putting something out into the world as performance that's going to have an effect, but the very process of what you're doing and how you work together and who you work with, also cultivating a particular culture. Let me see if I can get to a more articulate question.
No, it's so
there.
It's great, and what you just said really resonates so much. I mean, some of the things that arise for me immediately are living in a connection with the earth and with the cycles and seasons. And I feel like I'm on a path of discovering this, probably will be my whole life, of like, oh, my actions directly, if I put chemicals in my hair to wash it and then it goes to the drains, I'm pouring chemicals onto the earth that then I eat in my like I then consume back. Like we are in this deep connection with the earth. And so because I was raised, I think many people raised in the US, like so disconnected from that. I'm sort of rediscovering that, and then discovering the seasons, discovering the moon cycles, and how my body also has cycles and rhythms, and how relationships have cycles and rhythms. That there's just like this understanding that humans are not separate from the natural cycles and the earth, and that in order to live well, there's a correcting that needs to happen that is possible to greater and lesser extents depending on how far from like mainstream culture one is willing to go, which for me the answer is a little ways right now. And so that feels like deeply important in culture creation. And I think the other, because one could name a million things, the other thing that's really alive that might be also fun to share is that so Raph and I have been together coming up on 15 years, and we're polyamorous, and we do not thrive in a single family household. we do not thrive working as a duo. And yeah, our relationship just doesn't it like suffocates, or rather it's like the energy is too intense or something when it's just us. And so I think that has really, and we really thrive as a couple with new information, with new partners, living in community with other people around,
with artistic collaborators,
in projects where it's not just the two of us. So to me there's something in like realizing that thing I was taught, that like what I should do is like grow up and find my one person and move into a household and put up a fence and close my door and live happily with that person, is like, oh, that doesn't work for me. So but there's a kind of becoming more vulnerable, right? Becoming more open that is required when other people see you at your worst, and other people see you messy, and other people see you forget things, which is what happens when you live communally, what happens when you do collaborative projects, that like you just see people at their best and at their worst, and then you try to practice repair work and forgiveness. There's like all these kind of community technologies that feel like they've been sort of forgotten in a society that isolates rather than leans into oftentimes challenge, but also then sharing joy. I think that's also a part of living in community, and also definitely in polyamory, is like being happy for each other when we're happy is like also a practice. Compersion. So those are two things that feel like they have begun to change my life in the past decade or two, and feel like, oh, maybe I'm at the beginning of this, because because of the way the overculture is. It's like probably the discovery is just actually beginning. But maybe Dion, our child, can grow up slightly closer to starting with these things that I am upholding here.
Thank you.
What comes up for you?
The seed that sparked for me was just that culture is not an idea or a set of ideas. Culture lives in the body. And so the limiting factor on transformation in my life is not to just like open your mind, man, because it's more like farming in the body than it is like sending an email. It requires steady, incremental tending. So to renounce the overculture and like just go radical generally isn't a sustainable life choice,
Mm.
or often can have a really pretty shell that's then like hollowed out with all of the like external costs or like shadow expressions of repatterning the body and integrating values with all of the nitty gritty everyday relationships with money, relationships with birth parents, relationships with the earth. And it's like I have to reckon with how much more convenient it is for me if I just bite the bullet and pay for an Amazon Prime account, even though I hate that guy. And so if I don't want to live with that contradiction, then it requires me to slow down because I would really rather have that thing now. And in order to slow down, I need to reckon with all of the reasons that I'm living with urgency all day, every day. And that's a random, trivial example, but it's not about looking cool. And the body.
Although you guys look awesome, I will say that.
We do value looking cool, but not as much as some other things.
Oh my God, did you notice my sequins?
Yeah.
Thank you. We're in it for the long game.
Mm.
And that doesn't always look the way I want it to this week.
Yeah. Raph, you invoked an image for me with the phrase farming the body, which is new to me. Because I think of it not as, farming as extraction, but what it really is, farming is observation for the most part, and moving things from one to another in order to equilibrate, relationships so that life can come through.
Thank you. I think maybe actually rewilding is the better metaphor. Rewilding the body, which like forests take centuries to regrow.
I think it's, for me, it's both in that, like, there's the wild, like that just impulsive life, but what you guys are doing is stewarding, like it's maintenance culture. It's not just tearing shit down. It's the work, like you said, of your collaborators making you lunch, of someone watching your child. Like it's the boring, mundane stuff that actually allows us to have the time and energy to show up for the things we care about,
Yeah, the spreadsheets and the Google calendars.
Grant applications. People don't realize how much artist life is just, forms and applying and things. And it's a lot. Relationship
stewardship is then the other life skill for community. Showing up in humility and integrity to own, apologize, and repair over and fucking over again with all of the missteps.
I'm imagining you guys don't often say you're bored.
Though I think it's a good quality to have in life sometimes.
A little bit of boredom?
Yeah. You try like in at least one season out of the year to have a little boredom.
Yeah. All right. I want to wrap up. I want to invite you guys. Can you just name the dates, maybe of like at Earthdance, the tour, anything else that you guys are up to that we can help promote? And I'll put links in the description as well.
Great. Yeah, I was going to say one additional plug to come join us is that we want to meet people who care about this stuff. And these are the people we want to work with in a long, ongoing way. So if you're watching this and you're like, I like to perform, I like dance and theater and culture shift, then coming to this would be a great opportunity for us to connect and truly truly have an exchange, and really generally our collaborators are people we work with over and over and over. So this week is open to all levels of experience. So I think that will be quite cool. And it will be mostly dance and movement. And so you can prepare that you won't need to be like developing a specific character and acting and using text. Will be mostly expressing through the body. And it's a residential program that starts on Monday, July 31st. And so we'll work all day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, probably Friday morning. And then performances at Earthdance are on Friday and Saturday. That's
4th and 5th of August.
And then the show goes on tour to Boston on Sunday the 6th.
And so let me also say that for people who don't join for the week-long immersion, the performances at Earthdance 6 p.m. are followed by optional, well, all the performances are followed by artist talkbacks and community discussions to unpack the activists and like timely next steps in partnership with other anti-racism and eco-justice organizations. But then at Earthdance, it flows into a community dinner and what we're calling a integration jam. So we'll be getting together in the Umbrella Barn after dinner, but specifically looking for the ways that the shared experience of the performance resonates through the dance. And that's open to anyone who wants to come for the day.
Okay. I just wanted to name, we haven't physically overlapped that often, but I've been very aware of both of your presences in the culture at Earthdance the last few years, and your involvement. I know you guys facilitated was it New Year's Jam or July? Yeah, New Year's Jam. And just how many, friends of ours are overlapping working with you and Earthdance, and just that kind of sister organization of shared values and kinship. And really appreciate what you guys are bringing to Earthdance in this iteration, and God's willing in the future as well, as we continue to cultivate something together.
Thank you. I feel similarly. And I thanks for taking the time to have this talk. It's really enlivening to get to share and dialogue about these things that are so close to our heart.
Thanks for making space to invite us into these deeper conversations.
Yeah.
All right. Blessings on your rehearsal about to happen and everything leading up to the work at Earthdance. And we'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.